right?
Sure.
Or do we not have one?
Well, we're live, so.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Postcast. Where
the last time you were the host, you did the same exact thing, Tina. I said, "Okay, here we go," and then you're like, "So who's like?" You just start talking like you don't listen. It's so funny.
Yeah, so it's you.
Here we are at the Postcast where none of the rules apply.
None of them.
Are
there rules?
Not. I think we've decided not to have any.
It's the Outback Steakhouse of podcasting. No rules, just right. Oh, come on.
Oh, they're commercial. Forgot.
Oh, boy.
That look on Jennifer's face was priceless.
Yeah.
I feel like I always have that look because so many times you guys refer to the look on my face, and I'm like, I'm just sitting here.
You're just out of the four of us, you're the most easily embarrassed in public. Like you have your shame filter is a lot more sensitive than ours. We're just like letting it all hang out, and you're like, maybe you should tuck that back in. And so that's why, because you're just like, oh, okay, so changing the subject.
I wonder if it's because we're the mother of boys.
Oh.
Maybe.
Well, Rhonda doesn't have any boys, right? You have a son?
I have a stepson, yeah.
Oh, see? They do something to you.
Yeah, but he was 11 by the time that I met him.
Right.
Yeah, but that's when it gets the worst. Like, right? I don't know. Their fascination with bodily functions and fluids.
Oh, that's not just a boy thing. Have you met my girls?
Yeah, but they were always on their best behavior when I met them.
True.
I was just saying before we went live that I did the randomizer. So who wants to know the results?
I'm going to say
clearly you're last. Jamie's last, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Clearly, yes. Tina, Jen, Rhonda, Jamie. That is the order this time.
I'm going to start doing the randomizer. And by randomizer, I mean, I'm just going to decide. I'm going to say, oh, let me put it in the randomizer. Jamie's first.
Oh, dear. All right. So
that's Tina. I got to put them in order now. Tina, me, Rhonda, you. Got it. Yeah, I'm in order.
All right. So Tina, take it away with what do you want from us, spiel?
Just general feedback, and it's pretty short. There is more to it, but it wasn't polished enough to give to you guys. So this is the part that I got semi-polished.
And now remind us, you're trying to submit this for a
actually you're the one who told me about it, Podcastle, and they take fantasy shorts under 6,000 words and they pay 6 cents a word. So I decided that it was worth trying to get it accepted. So
and they read the story, so it's kind of like a podcast.
Yeah, and they have some pretty cool stories on there that you can go on there and listen to.
Yeah.
Tina, let me ask you one more question. Is this your opening scene for this 6,000 words?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
This is the first scene I wrote. It was part of a sprint, and I hadn't planned to do anything with it. It was just the words. So that's the first thing that I wrote. So it's the most polished. The rest of it's just really rough. And I don't even really have much of an outline yet. I started to make an outline. So I might start it somewhere different.
Okay.
Wait, before you go into isolation, is this that horse of a guard? I know I have a little more knowledge than the other two ladies, or is this her horse?
This is her horse.
Okay, thanks. All right, so Tina is going into the isolation chamber. She will not talk while we discuss her story. Then she'll come out guns a-blazing to defend or to accept all of our...
that's how it works here on the Postcast.
Yeah. So she was saying she did this as one of our writing sprints for 15 minutes. And if you watch our podcast, you know that it's positive feedback only for that. So she was looking for a real critique of this work. I put it into the Google Docs and just did the suggestions that I do if I'm helping someone with edits. And really, okay, can I just say I really love this ideal. I love the idea. I like the Tyrion name. I like this world, and I like the potential here. But funnily enough, my first piece of meat, I'm going to say that I found a lot of tell where she could do show, which is really funny because that was our topic for today. So I did point out and make suggestions in the places where I saw that, but one that I will mention is if you go about, I don't know, 6 paragraphs down after where the Lord is talking. You searched the entire property, the house, and all the outbuildings, said a deep voice that resounded with authority. Well, I suggested she say something like, instead of a deep voice that resounded with authority, his words were clipped, his tone casual yet commanding, as though fully expecting his every whim to be fulfilled. So that would be how you would tell us that the voice was an authoritative voice, as opposed to just saying he had an authoritative voice. What was it that Tyrion heard in the voice that made her think it was authoritative? So I just wanted to point out that particular suggestion that I made to her. Another one was, let me see. Oh no. And then, so my note says, or something else to show us, not tell us, right? I had some other things that I put in here. This did not read finished to me because there was just, I felt a little too much missing information. And I think that when the author looks at the suggestions that I made, she will see what I mean when I say there were so many opportunities that she could have explored, but it felt like I am on a deadline and I have to finish, so I'm just going to say blah, 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 blah. And I know the author is capable of way better than that. So I did flag a few things like that.
I agree, because before we started, I also asked her, I thought she'd submitted the wrong thing because we have seen this already, but she said she'd edit it. And so that's why I looked at it again, because I agree with Jamie. I didn't feel like this was like a finished piece because I felt like the same thing. Like there's a lot happening on one page, which tells me that that she didn't expand enough and didn't give us enough. Like I feel like it just like kind of barrels through really fast. I found, again, I just like Jamie, I did find some telling, not showing. A little over halfway down the page, the paragraph that starts, Tyrion heard the creaking of a saddle and the sound of footsteps moving closer to her hiding place. Okay, so good words in there, but she's still telling us what she's hearing is and just structuring the sentence a little differently. Instead of Tyrion this, Tyrion that, just saying like a saddle creaking, followed by footsteps pound, followed by boom, boom, boom of footsteps. I don't know. Like it's not my story. So, but more of like just really making us feel like we're there instead of like telling us what's happening. There was another one down a little bit farther. The racing of Tyrion's heart also calmed. I mean, there's some great words there, but like, let me feel that her heart is calming down instead of like telling me that it is. Another thing I found, the very second sentence, the rat is a passive voice, which is funny because we're going to be talking about that, I think, next week, right? Didn't we say that that's going to be one of our topics? The rattling of tack and the pounding of hooves on the path only yards away caused Tyrion's heart to race. Her heart's what's racing. So that's actually the sentence, or the subject is Tyrion's heart. So I just feel like that should be, it's not, doesn't have to be fixed. I just kind of thought that since we're going to be talking about that I would point that out. And I still don't like the use of the word tack. I brought that up the first time that we saw this, because tack is a word that you would use to describe all kinds of stuff. Everything that is on a horse is tack, like from the saddle to the bridle to, I would like, for me, I think something more specific than just saying the rattle of tack, because it just makes me think like everything on the horse is just rattling around, which seems a little bit too much. And then the only other piece of meat that I have is the Lord, the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. I feel like he should have, if she doesn't know his name yet, which makes sense that she wouldn't. I don't think he should keep calling the Lord, because they call him my Lord, my Lord.
Well, I both agree and disagree with you, because she knows it's the King's Royal Guard. Like, so she hints that Tyrion knows who these guys are. Now, this guy may be like a stranger, but I even flagged in her story, I'm like, when she hears that voice and someone says, my Lord, her mind should race through a catalog. Is it this person? Is it this person? Trying to like match the name to the voice and the person, which would develop the piece. It would develop character, give her an opportunity to introduce a malevolent person that she suspects that it is. And then she could start calling him the stranger, Lord Fauntleroy, whatever, something besides the Lord. So I agree with your critique there, but I would handle it in a bit of a different way.
And and if she doesn't want her to like really know at all who this person is, then there should be some sort of identifier that, because when we as humans like encounter someone new, like we catalog parts of them, right? So that, because that we know this, because then if we go back to our friends, we're like, all right, so this dude was talking to me, and so Mr. High Water Pants, like we've come up with something, right? Some way to identify him. And so I feel like that in this scary situation, there'd be something where, if she can't see him, there'd be something about his voice that then she would say the man with a deep voice, or the deep voice, something like the Lord, the Lord, the Lord just seemed very forced. It didn't seem like it was unpolished, I guess. So, and one more thing, sorry, this I know it's in the meat, but she wanted it like, she wanted to know these things, but in the last paragraph, she had to do something. She couldn't allow this to happen to innocent people. And I read it again, and I'm not, maybe I missed it. What is this? Like, I know that they're going to go through looking for her.
Yeah, but I totally also flagged that. I changed it. She couldn't allow this to happen. I highlighted that. But what was she to do? Simply turn herself over to the royal guard when it was clear they intended to kill her? Perhaps if she could find the charges against her, she could endeavor to prove them false, right? Like, so also a motivation for her galloping away toward the village, right? I mean, like the assumption is that we understand her motive to go to the village.
Right.
And I feel like go ahead and sort of talk about her thought process and everything. So I put, when I flagged it, describe it. She could not allow the village to be burned. Her mind suddenly pictured baby so-and-so and the happy laughing children at the square and the woman at the well chatting about their day. And then the king's guards riding in and the beatings and the fire. No, she could not allow that to happen. Do you know what I mean? So like paint the picture of terror that she is anticipating befalling her village, and yet juxtapose with like, but what am I supposed to do? Turn myself in to save them. So so that you're painting this picture of this choice that she has to make for the people.
Right. Exactly.
Rhonda, you're being so quiet. So sorry. We're just kind of talking.
Okay. So are you done? Should I go?
You could go anytime. You can jump in anytime.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to repeat anything. I have a lot of the same observations. It did seem rushed to me, but let's see. You mentioned the owl. So this isn't the second time you mentioned the owl. This is the first time, because the first time was the sprint. So anyway, I was wondering at first when I read this, if you decided to make him become a friend at first, but I'm assuming that you haven't decided yet, since this is a refresh of the sprint. Okay, I wondered a couple of times if there was some foreshadowing. Jen mentioned the saddle creaking. So you, in the first instance, you mentioned, sure, the creaking of a saddle and the sound of footsteps. Okay, that's great. And then a paragraph later, you mentioned you heard his saddle creak again, or his saddle creaked again. Bringing such a small detail up, I understand you were trying to show like what was going on, but pointing that out makes me think that there's like a bomb under his saddle, or somehow, like there's some sort of foreshadowing going on, and that very well could be, and that would be awesome. But if that's not,
she was trying to say he was getting on and off his horse, but she can't see him. Mm-hmm. So I thought that's how she was trying to telegraph that information to us, that that's what the creaking saddle was. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you that it may not always work for every reader.
Right. Well, I think I see what Rhonda's saying, as far as like that, because the terminology is so close, it makes us clue in that we think it's something important. And if it's not, then she should probably change up the words, right? Is that what you're saying, Rhonda? Like, so
yes. And actually, it didn't occur to me that the first creaking was him getting off the horse. I thought he had a footman with him. I didn't realize that he was getting off his horse. So
Mm.
I guess if I knew that he was getting off and back on his horse, then the creaking saddle would mean less to me. But that did not occur to me. And then the other foreshadowing I wanted to bring up, maybe it's foreshadowing, maybe it's not, was the second to last sentence, ignoring the throbbing in her arm and the blood dripping for her elbow. Okay, I need to know, does that show her character as in someone who isn't thinking ahead? Or is she just so ill prepared for what's going on in her life right now that she doesn't know that she needs to not have blood dripping, which I assume is what that is? Or is this foreshadowing that she's not going to make it to wherever she's going because she made a really dumb move?
Wow.
So anyway, those are the two things that I wanted to bring up. Just if it's foreshadowing, A+. And if it's not, I don't know.
I want
Do
to
what you
read a
want with
scene
that.
where the guy gets blown off his horse because there's a bomb under his saddle.
I do too.
Awesome.
And then I had asked too, like if this was her opening scene, and because that would change some things I was gonna say. Like if it's not her opening scene, then we have already set up who Black is, and like so I get it, the Black's muzzle and like that, but
Mhm.
maybe be a little bit more clear, because the more you have to make us be like investigative in what you're writing, the more that it pulls us out of the story. I think that I think it's a good thing to do in your writing to like make your reader like look for clues, but if you're doing it throughout the whole thing, like, and this whole thing is full of like, we're trying to figure out what's going on, like Black, so it must be it's a horse, right? And then she mentions tack, okay, so it's a horse, and then everything else you have to like read it and try to figure out what's going on. And I feel like that some of the things you probably should step back and make them really obvious to the reader so that they're not like lost in all the clues. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
because you're saying an element of the mysterious is terrific,
right.
but it doesn't need to be just like an endless wondering this and wondering that, because you don't want to seem like too much work.
Yes. And too much of it is not a good thing, right? So like it would feel like there's just too much confusion, as opposed to, ooh, this is intriguing, I want to read more. Because I am intrigued and I do want to read more. I do want to
Right.
find out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to end this with a big old fat piece of bread, I really want to know. I want to know what
Mhm.
happens. I want to know, does the village survive? Does she get caught?
Mhm.
She's going to the village, so is she going to turn herself into, like, I mean, there really is a lot here to pursue.
Yep. Agreed.
Agreed. All right, Tina. Are we ready to let her out?
Sure.
Okay. I should have been taking notes.
Well, guess what? You can go back and watch this again. It's kind of cool how we have it.
Well, now I don't. I can. No, I'm just hoping that I can remember everything you said so that I can like respond to it. I didn't even have a pen. I don't even have a pen here, so it's like I should be writing notes, but I have nothing to write with. But thanks, guys. I mean, this was really a rough piece that I tried to polish up so that I had something to give you guys for the postcast. I really having to turn something in snuck up on me, and I wasn't prepared. So not only was the piece rushed because it was a 15-minute sprint, but then I tried to fix it at the last minute. So, and I honestly am. I started. Was it yesterday? Or maybe the day before, working on an outline so that I have 3 or 4 sprint pieces that are kind of disjointed. That I might or might not use, like the one where we had to be going to a garage sale. I'm not really sure that's going to fit into the actual story.
Fantasy garage sale.
Yeah. Well, it turned out to be like a little thing in the village, and she brought the meat pies, remember? So that one's probably not going to make it into the story. But anyway, it gives me lots of ideas of where all of your critique gave me lots of ideas of where I can go and things that I can and add to my story. So thank you.
Good.
All right. Well, I did the Google Docs treatment, and so all my suggestions are coming at you in a file.
Okay, thank you.
I did mine by hand. I'm just gonna take a picture of it and message it to you. You can pull it
Okay,
up and
that'll
look
be
in.
awesome.
All right.
Right.
So your back is fed and you're feeling good about everything?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who did I say is next? Randomizer.
Jen.
Jen. Okay, so what do you want from us, Jennifer?
Okay, so we're going back to Nano. I like Tina. The deadline snuck up on me and I had to find something that I could polish. And so I had to go back and reread everything I had submitted to you guys already to make sure that because I'd forgotten and so this piece here is things are starting to go better for our heroes, Grant and Sarah. But of course, as a romance writer, I can't leave it that way. But I guess what I'm looking for is, does it feel like that this is a relationship that is getting closer to falling in love? And they have a fairly serious conversation. I just want to know, does it feel forced? Does it feel like this? I don't know. I just guess I want general feedback.
All right, be silenced. What do you have to say, Rhonda? I always let you go first on Jen's stuff because you tend to get some really passionate feelings about these characters.
Okay, well, I am thrilled to be going back to this book because I've missed them. This is probably my favorite of this romance series, this couple here. So I enjoyed reading this. So the number one reason is because situational ethics is a pet thing of mine. It's not something I'm very flexible on, and for them to talk about this was a lot of fun for me to read. Let's see. She had a question about uprightness. I assume she wasn't yelling that at us. So I thought integrity might be a good word for that. So anyway, just a suggestion. But I don't know that I really have any meat for this. Everything made sense. It seemed like a complete conversation. I didn't think that anybody was being haughty in their opinions or silly. So yeah, I hope that we're going to be in this for a while.
Awesome. Yeah, I also was happy to get back to Grant and Sarah, and it's interesting because it had been so long. You know what I mean? We've been talking about Widows of the West and, Phoebe. Well, I've been in like Esther Phoebe world, and it has been really fun to come back to this. I do really like these characters, and I really want good things for the piece. And I have to say, my first piece of meat was when I got to, where is it? Why is it always so gray in winter? Blah, blah. Okay, so when I get down past paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, he felt her eyes on him. That's the first clue I had that this was his point of view. I had no idea this was his point of view until that moment. And it really jarred me because then I had to kind of back up a little bit and be like, oh, this is not Sarah's point of view, because we start with her at the window wondering why it's always so gray in wintertime. And so then as I kept reading, well, because she asked, I'll kind of say that I found this a little bit robotic. I'm going to say some things, and you're going to say some things. I'm going to say some. I mean, it was just kind of, yeah. So I went ahead and just kind of grabbed a couple of spots where I thought was an opportunity to help fix that. So right away, Sarah says, I like it when you talk like a professor. So there's going to be an internal reaction. If you're writing from his point of view, he's going to think, oh my goodness. He'll either feel his face grow red. She says, what? So, because he seems to be the not suave guy of the series. So when she has him chuckle, it could be an uncomfortable laugh to cover the fact that he's all giddy inside. But she doesn't say that. She just says, he chuckled, blah, blah, blah. She smiled, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? We need more of how he's feeling about what she says to make this scene really be awesome. And also, my final, so I've indicated all the spots where I thought that she could flavor this little dish that she's giving us. But when you get to the very end and the two boys interrupt their moment, she needs to sit on that moment and make it gooey, ooey, and dreamy for us. So I don't remember what he says to her. She says to him, and they lock eyes. And maybe he has a desire to clasp her hands to his bosom and declare, there's a moment, and then, Grant, come over here and help me with my math. Like she needs to sit there longer for us so that we feel just as frustrated as they do, that something special might have happened in that moment, but the kids interrupted. So again, I know that she can do it and will do it. And, a next pass through, it will be probably a different animal, but that's my meat for the piece.
I thought it was from her point of view too. And I guess I missed it. I missed that one line. So I feel like I need to go back and reread it because I was a little bit confused. And I read it a couple times. I do not know how I missed that it was his point of view. But yeah, the conversation just seemed a little, I don't know. I guess robotic is the word you used. I have a harder time coming up with critique and then how to fix it. I just knew that it felt off to me. And it seemed kind of long. But other than that, I really, there was a typo in the first, where she says, the light snow had begun the day, had increasingly grew heavier. So I feel like she either wanted to say the day before or that day. And then she used quietly twice in one sentence in that same paragraph. But other than that, I don't really have any meat.
Mm-hmm. As far as the dialogue goes, I know it is really full of dialogue, and it's, to me, that made it more fast-paced, and it added to the conversation. And I guess I understand why you would want to see his reaction to some of her words and that sort of thing. But I don't know, it didn't detract from me really, I guess because I was putting my own feeling on them possibly. But went down at the bottom when she's starting to talk about oh, well, being an orphanage teacher isn't good enough for you, mister. That I got her emotion, I think, from just her sentence. So I probably wouldn't mind a little bit more just as a romance reader, but I was okay with not having a ton because I had imposed my own over top of it, I guess.
Yeah. So to her question of does this read like a conversation between two people who are becoming, boyfriend girlfriendy? How would you respond to that question?
I thought that it wasn't. It was past that. Mm-hmm. They were already boyfriend girlfriend.
Yeah, and I really questioned it because I didn't know exactly where it was. But then the whole thing about him applying for the professorship without her knowing, I thought, well, this must be toward the beginning of the romance where he wouldn't be discussing that with her before he did it. Although back then, I guess the men probably chose what they were going to do with. Well, I'd still think that he would have asked her. So, yeah, I wasn't sure where they were in their romance either.
All righty. So does anyone have anything to add before we unleash Jen on the world again?
More. Next chapter.
Next chapter, please. You heard the lady. All right, Jen, come on out. How long before we get some more?
Well, probably next week, maybe. So Thank you, ladies. I really, really appreciated all of that. That was some really good advice. Rhonda, if this is your favorite, poor Wallace is going to be so disappointed.
Oh, poor Wallace.
Well, this couple is my favorite. Wallace is my favorite character. Wallace. Warren. Oh, you're funny. All right. And he's my favorite character. I know.
Okay, I was sitting here going, who the heck is Wallace?
Yeah. Because he's in more books without her, So, without the romance being a focal part. But he's the number one altogether.
And I agree with what you were saying, Jamie, about yeah, why am I not inside of him when she says something like that? I mean, that's a pretty big thing for her to say like that, like, kind of flirty. And so for sure. And after I had submitted this, I was like looking at something and I actually caught, gosh, it doesn't even look like it's his point of view at the beginning. So I caught it, but I'd already submitted it. And, and I was already late, so I wasn't going to try to fix that. So I absolutely agree. That needs to come up sooner. Like the second paragraph starts off, Sarah stood looking out the window. Instead, it should be Grant watched her as she stared out the window. Something like that.
Something like he tried not to stare. He knew he should be thinking about the boys with their lessons or, fun romancy dancy stuff.
For sure. Yeah. And I love the idea of marinating on what is happening inside of him, at least, and between them before the boys interrupt, because then it makes it more of like like so close kind of a situation. So,
that's what I want. I totally want it to be like these brats, but of course they really love the brats, but.
And if it's from his point of view, then another suggestion I have is, when she's trying to tell him that he's making the wrong decision, how does he feel about that? What is his reaction to that? Because for me, I was kind of like, well, that's kind of presumptuous of her, but that's just me. Like, that might just be my opinion. It would be nice to hear his reaction.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear you say that. And then Rhonda had, when she was talking about Sarah's feelings, she was kind of putting a little bit of an edge on it. Like, oh, you think you're too good to work for these orphanage boys. And I read the whole thing of her just being, maybe because I'm listening to Jane Austen's Emma, just silly prattling on. Well, you're so much better with the boys when you just be yourself. So the very fact that 3 readers read it so differently, I think is very telling that there's work to do as far as the author needs to tell us what these characters are thinking, or we're going to draw our own conclusions.
That's a very good point. I do like Rhonda's feedback in that it moved quickly, which is like, it needs to be balanced. I need more balance. I don't want to take that completely out. So I don't want to overdo the whole getting inside of his head thing, but it needs to be there. It's completely missing. And it's so funny that I couldn't see that. Right. But this is not head. You guys know how I go through my editing process. Like I write it first, then I walk away, and then I go through and I do kind of like a quick edit through it. So I just picked a chapter out that you hadn't seen yet. You know what I mean? And then I tried fixing it. And so that just doesn't really work for a good edit. So clearly it needs more work. So I say that you guys might get some more next week, but I don't know, maybe not, because it may not. Well, only because it may need more from me before I can get a good feedback from you guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
But I really appreciate everything you guys said. That's very, very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Well, with if your back is feeling very well fed, we move on to Help Rhonda.
Help you, Rhonda. Help you, Rhonda.
I like that version.
Songstress.
I was thinking it before either of you two.
All right. So, Rhonda, did you want to just have a conversation about this, or did you want us to talk about it without you? Because tell us what you had said you wanted to know about this piece.
Well, I don't mind going in isolation because I would just rather listen to you guys tell me what you think. But okay, so I got my first rejection letter.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Getting a rejection letter means you're trying and you're putting yourself out there. So
Yes.
it really is to be celebrated, to be honest.
Yes, I am not discouraged by that at all. I mean, just for exactly what you just said, I submitted something that was rejected. So that's good. All right. So this piece, it was supposed to be a little bit ridiculous, and it was supposed to be sci-fi. And I would like to maybe enlarge this, maybe make it longer. So I'd like to know what you guys think could be added to, or what could be beefed up, I guess. And also, which is it too ridiculous to leave as is, or should I change some of that also?
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
All right. Silence, woman.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say I love the line on the first page where she introduces herself and says, "Thankfully, the tree is full of nuts." Like that. I like drew a great big heart next to that. That was just good.
Okay, but that does bring up my very first. Okay, so she did not ask, why do you think they didn't want my piece? I think a lot of editors will shy away from co-written. And that might have been a mark against the author. Also, I really thought this was Rhonda's work. So I was sort of feeling a little bit like, wait a minute, Rhonda Hagerman gets credit for this piece, not this surname, not this combined mom-daughter name, unless the mom had a bigger part of writing it than I thought. So I felt a little bit jealous for Rhonda Hagerman writer that she was not taking full credit for this piece. So sorry to jump on you there, Tina, but that was my very first gripe about whatever. Okay, go ahead, Tina.
No, that was it. I just wanted to point out that I love that line before we got to the story.
I love that too. That was very cute.
Before we get to the story, can I make a couple suggestions on this too? Just so then we can get to the story. The D.D. Bauman or Bauman. It's Bauman. Okay. There's no space there, and I see she's done that 2 different places, and maybe that's a choice that they made, a stylistic choice to not have a space after DD. But if it is, I as a reader, it made me trip. Like I stopped and went, oh, because it looks like it's a typo. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. And then she has her Instagram and Twitter as RG Rhonda G or RG Hagerman. And if she's only going to write under the Bauman, then she can go in and change. She doesn't have to do a new Facebook or a new Twitter and a new Instagram. I'm just throwing that out there that you can actually go in and change your handles. So if she only wants to do one, but my final thing is, I know that they came up with this name together, so they have this pen name, but it may not hurt just to have both their names on the cover of whatever they do, because then Rhonda wouldn't have to have 2 social media presences. That's not right. Preside. 2 social media preside. She could still just be herself, but if she's going to do a ton of nonfiction and then a ton of that, she may want to keep them separate. But that's something that maybe we can discuss afterwards, just as a discussion. But I want to throw that out there because I think that we should discuss that. Okay.
I think we should spend the whole time of Rhonda's isolation debating. No, just kidding.
I know. I just want to put it out there so I didn't forget.
No, I totally agree with you. That's why I did not interrupt you before now. Okay. Now I'm going to steamroll you. No, just kidding. Okay. So I had read this, trying to, give feedback in an earlier draft. And so I kind of didn't make many notes on this 4-page incarnation here that she sent through. Again, a reason they might have bumped you. I did find a place where she switched to, she said on page, oh goodness, see my document on page 3, it says he
eyes her.
Yeah, should have been me. So the editor might have also seen that and said, nope. I mean, who knows? But anyway, these are things that I picked out because, like Rhonda said, this was supposed to be speculative. So it was supposed to be weird. It was supposed to be quirky. So she hit that on the head, I felt. And my opinion is that this character, with her seductressy ways and her magical powers and everything, would totally make a very fun, like speculative cozy. Like, why could she not have all kinds of adventures as, this agent person? So, and all of these weird, she could go to the Sea of Tranquility and find out that the man in the moon had his cheese stolen or some bizarre crap like that. But the point is, this character I love was not such a fan of the greenhorn, but he was secondary anyway. He was just the fly that the spider was toying with during the whole story. So if her question to me is what should she keep and what should she throw away, this particular character is very fun to read. And so I would keep her and have her go doing adventuring. And that's my thoughts.
Go ahead, Tina.
Okay, my first note that I wrote was the first paragraph. I thought that she had a date coming over. And so when it was a reporter, that kind of threw me a minute. And I would have liked the Beatles to be mentioned earlier so that I kind of had an idea of what the heck was going on. Because it was confusing for a little while. I really liked her talking about her adventures. And when you said my experience over the centuries, I love that line. Because that like totally I went, oh, so she's been alive for centuries. I wrote ooh right there.
Yes, I love that too, because without telling us, she was really old. Like it just we'd know.
Yeah.
Yep. Love it.
So then I loved everything that you said about the lady. But then the reporter, I don't really care for him too much. He didn't, I don't know. I feel like a reporter would ask more questions, but she was kind of playing with him and had him under her little.
But I don't
thing,
think that he
so-
was fleshed out enough or responded appropriately to what was happening.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah, there's just something off about the reporter. And then when she reached her hand up to make sure her hair was covering her ear, I was like, ooh, what's wrong with her ear?
And then we never find out.
Well, yeah, because this is a little bit late. It was quite a bit later where her headquarters was talking to her in her earpiece.
Oh.
But it's too far apart.
Because I missed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's too far apart. And so I was like, does she have Spock ears? It's like,
right. That's
is she wearing fake Spock ears?
I didn't think so. That's exactly what I thought. There was something alien about her. That's so funny.
Yeah. And so then again, I would have liked to have known that this was about the Beatles earlier, because it's like on page 3 in the middle before we hear that name. And I think it would have been a lot more delicious to hear that the Beatles were actually agents and that the being a rock band was a cover.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there in her defense. This would have been in a whole anthology that was specifically about the Beatles. So I think she was kind of counting on her readership coming at it with the premise that this was going to be a story about the Beatles. So, I mean, I would say that if this was meant to be a standalone, I would agree with you. Like if she's trying to keep this as a story about the Beatles, then yes, for sure.
Okay. And Some of My Bread, I loved the line where she says all of their songs were messages to headquarters. And then she goes through and some of their songs and how they were actually secret messages. I love that little device. And I just thought it was a great story overall. And like you said, Jamie, I really love that female character. I would love to read a series of adventures of hers, like in history back in,
Ooh.
like maybe Hitler really didn't kill himself. Maybe it was her. Like my brain is just like coming up with all these things that it could have been really her over history.
Yes, because I mean, the speculative call for submission was like, think about alternate versions of history, alternate reality. So she could even possibly exist in an alternate reality where, I don't know, the Beatles is really a pest exterminating company and the best, band on the planet is the Angels or the Spitfires or something like that. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do. And I think that her writing style really leans toward that fun and playful kind of experimental style writing that speculative readers, I think, would like.
I agree.
Okay, I was really glad to hear that she wanted to know if there were things that we wanted to expand, because that really actually, I kind of felt bad for like what I was critiquing, because I had all these like questions, and I felt like, because I know she was trying to keep this short because she was submitting it, but I felt like there were a lot of holes, like a lot of like we were left out hanging in a lot of areas. Before I get to that though, to double up on what Tina said about the reporter, I felt like there was like he's there, but he's not really a character in this scene, in this story, and he needs to be more of a character because he's there, right? Like at page 3, his face turns redder than my lipstick as he gasps, but we don't know why. I don't know why he's gasping. Like that didn't fit with what she just got done telling him. Like she says, I have to admit, you look better now than any of the pictures I've seen. This is him talking. Than I've seen you from back in the 20th century. Well, he wouldn't be gasping about that right now because he already looked at the pictures. So there's that. Halfway down, a little bit more than halfway down, page 4. He says, intrigue? ?
I flagged that also.
You did like it?
I flagged it.
Oh, flagged it. Because like she doesn't use the word intrigue, so he's not repeating it. Like I don't know why he says intrigue. So I'm wondering if that's an editing thing. Like maybe you had it in the sentence before that, and then you took it out. She took it out.
It was funny because
sorry.
as I kept reading, I was like, is that the name of the mission that they went on? And if it is, she should have named it something different. So I had a bunch of guesses and I put all of my guesses in my comments.
Right. So, and then again on page 5, he audibly gulps, but I don't know why he's gulping. Like that didn't seem to fit with anything. So, all right. So that's all about like just talking about Jimmy. Okay. So then we get to the last like two pages. And so then here's all my question marks, because I feel like that she kind of got a lot of things rolling for us that didn't quite come together. I think probably because it was a short story, but if she wants to expand this, then here we go. Like she can really go and do some of these things. Like, all right, so on page 6, the first full paragraph, the last sentence, I have succeeded in turning his attention from my boys, meaning the Beatles, right, to that very precious elixir. Nothing is as special as those guys. So nothing is as, she's talking about that she's turned it to the precious elixir, but then now she says nothing's as special as those guys. So which one is it? What's more precious, the elixir or the guys? And she says that very precious elixir, but we've not heard about the elixir comes in at the end, but she's not really mentioned it. Or did I miss that? Like I didn't see any.
I think you missed it. I think it says something about in the poem that she recites.
That's later.
Yeah, that's later. So just changing that sentence a little bit, like don't call it that elixir, or kind of allude to it instead. Like after, and she really didn't turn his attention to the elixir because she hasn't mentioned the elixir yet. So that just needs a little bit of work. But so I feel like the elixir is one whole.
No, she mentions the elixir before that sentence.
Okay, where?
It's where it's the part it says, I primly fold my hands and quote from the ancient tome.
Where are you?
It's all underlined. It's at the top of page 7.
I thought Jen was at like page 4.
Right, I'm at page 6.
Oh,
well, and I will say,
okay.
I think that
what you're saying.
Have to be like an author's choice thing, because I tended to find a little bit clever. Like I kind of felt that her changing the subject to the elixir at this point in the story, like it did not have that effect on me that it did on you, of feeling like, wait a minute, where's this coming from? And I guess because my whole attitude coming into this is strap yourself in. You're going on a weird roller coaster, LSD kind of a ride. So for somebody to suddenly throw a magical elixir at me isn't going to necessarily be so jarring. Like, where did this elixir come from is not even a thought that I would have.
I don't think this is so much that is it's the word. Maybe it's just the word that. Like when you say that very precious elixir, it's almost like this is the second time we've heard it. Like you've already referred to it. It's that elixir, as opposed to my, like even if she'd use the word, to my precious elixir. And the sentence saying that she has succeeded in turning his attention, but did she? Like I didn't really see that she had done that. So that's just one piece of meat. So I mean, again, this is her story. So and then I don't understand why it was a challenge. She said, ugh, she's talking to the agent in her ear. When are you going to send me a challenge? Fine. So I don't understand what the challenge is still. And then she says a little bit later on, I'm moving closer. Let me whisper in your ear. Then the very next sentence, I primly fold my hands behind my back and pace the room. You can't whisper in his ear and pace the room at the same time. Unless I missed something there. But then she starts reading the tome. So then we understand a little bit more about the elixir. So my questions are, besides the fact of like, I think that the elixir is its whole plot point in itself and could be like a whole one of her stories, not mixed in with everything else. What happened to the carnival? Like she says she's going to mention that, let's start talking about the carnival, but then we don't hear anything else about this carnival. So again, there's a whole nother story you could write about this person, right? And then the very beginning, this whole thing was supposed to be a PR move, but I don't understand why she's now giving him the elixir. How is that a PR move? So maybe more clarification, maybe like the fact that having this journalist have eternal life will, then he can go back and report on it. But I think I feel like that again could be a whole story in itself that I don't feel like was fleshed out enough.
She can make another whole story about what happened to her ear.
Yeah. Wait, shut up.
No, seriously, because I thought when she said she moved her hand to cover her ear out of habit, I really thought something had happened to her ear in that city that started with an E. And see, I liked that because to me it was like a hint of like something had happened and her ear had gotten hurt. And then I would be so ready to read that story if she were to post it somewhere else or another time or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right, because that paragraph starts off her talking about that planet, and then she does that to her ear, so you think they're connected, as opposed to start a new paragraph and hearing a high pitched buzz or whatever, explain like that sound that people get with their hearing aids.
Yeah,
and then
I did not think it was. Yeah, I didn't think it was the CIA like Tina did. I thought like you, Jen, something happened to her.
No, I didn't think that either. It was later that she said that they were talking to her in her ear.
Tina thought it was Spock too, right?
Yeah, I thought it was something she had to hide, like with the shape of her ear, or that was wrong with her ear, or something like that.
So ultimately, my bread that's on both sides of this meat is that it's very creative, and I feel like that there's a lot here that she's crammed into a little bit, but it needs to not be all crammed in there, because all crammed in, I don't feel like it worked as well as if she could take it apart and do what she wants to do and make it like expand it more, right? And I love your idea, Jamie, about it being all these little, these stories with that. So that's my bread is yes, do it.
Yeah, maybe she could do a Lester Dent treatment for this girl. And
how cool would that be?
6,000 word stories, you know what I mean? And she could pile the grief on her in weird ways, ectoplasmic slime fell on her from a bucket or something like that you can't do if you're writing in the real world. So how fun would that be to do with this character?
And connect them all. I don't hate this journalist. I just feel like that he's not fleshed out enough. So how cool would it be if like each of the stories start off with him taking notes and her going on and telling another story, and then we are transported to where she's actually doing the mystery. I don't know, that'd be kind of cool. But I mean, that's her choice. But
all right.
I just wanted to add at the end, the last line. I felt like what was happening was she gave him the elixir, and now she was going to tell him what to write. So maybe I was just.
Oh, and see, I thought the elixir was so that you don't die, so you don't age.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. That's just what my inference. Like here's your elixir. You're going to live forever. Now I'm going to tell you what to write.
I want some elixir. I can tell someone what to write. I can just sit back and eat bonbons.
I mean, the Beatles are under the power of the agency or whoever it is because of the elixir and the magical guitar strings. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense that it would be like, well, now you will write what we tell you, and you are now hooked on our special sauce or whatever.
Well, maybe if she had like marinated there a little bit longer about how the elixir, like she just kind of said it's because of the elixir that we were able to control the Beatles, but then that's it, and so the Beatles are really kind of like this much of the story, so maybe if she had kind of like settled there a little bit longer about what the elixir did and how they used it, then when she pulled the elixir out at the end, I'd be like, oh, she's going to manipulate him, which I didn't feel that way at the end. And now that you say that, I forgot that she'd said that about the Beatles with the elixir. So,
well, and I wonder too if just because I'm looking for that poem about the elixir, she's saying I'll start with the mystery at the carnival. So the magic 8 ball was supposed to be the carnival mystery. I'm just now making that connection, but it's obviously not strong enough if you didn't relate that the 8 ball was about the carnival. Do you know what I'm saying?
I just think there's so many elements. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like
it's very kind of complicated.
Yeah, it kind of sums up, I think, everything I was saying about it. Like you have the 8 ball and you have the carnival and you have the elixir and you have this reporter and you have, I feel like, if it's about the elixir, which is what you ended on, and that was supposed to be your shattering moment, then we should have marinated a little bit longer, settled in a little bit longer with the elixir, and the Beatles and how that all happened. And then she gives him the elixir at the end. And then take all these other elements that you kind of threw in there, and that'll be your other stories. Take out the carnival, take out the magic 8-ball. That's the beginning of the next story after he's already had the elixir, and now we're ready to read on. And then you go into the carnival story. Like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are we ready to let Rhonda out of isolation?
Nope.
She's been clickety clacking away on her computer. I think she was, I wasn't sharp enough. I could have been taking notes with my keyboard.
Oh, yes.
That's funny.
That is very funny. Awesome. All right, out you come, I guess, Rhonda.
Okay, I have so much to say. All right, thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate every single thing you guys said. You guys are awesome. A, for reading all of that, and B, for just your comments were fantastic. Okay, so I do want to talk about the front cover part, but I don't want to forget about these other things.
Oh yeah,
we'll do that last.
Because you had a lot of really great things. I should have actually talked to you guys about that before I did this. But anyway, okay, Jennifer, I am so disappointed in you. Okay, so Eridani, that is the galaxy that Spock came from.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, well, it was in the original series. I don't know if they ever talked about it in any of the movies or anything, but in the original series they did.
No,
so Rhonda, you are too dorky not to write this kind of stuff. I can't believe you haven't written more stuff like this prior to now.
Yeah. So I'm glad that
I'm not as into the original series as I am into Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, and Voyager. Yeah. However, the new movies I love, and they for sure talk about that. So bail on my part. Man.
Well, definitely Next Generation is the best, but I love how campy the old ones are. So that's why I like those so much. And speaking of old spy movies, Intrigue, that is sort of like another campy, I guess, cliche that someone mentions. In fact, I think it might have even been in television shows and not in James Bond movies, but people would say intrigue, and that would be the whole sentence.
I know what you're talking about. Kind of like, I totally get it. So it's like an old way of talking to each other, because I've listened to old radio dramas and they have a really weird way of, she used to come around. I mean, I can't even, so I totally get what you're saying. So,
but
that's for me, right? Like that's mine or whatever, instead of saying I like that or that's my favorite flavor or whatever. Right.
Yep. Okay. So I'm glad to know. I mean, I wish it would have worked, but I'm glad to know that it didn't. So I'll need to either just take that right out or fix it up.
Depends on who your audience is, Rhonda. If your audience is people who are going to know, then because there are people who will know that, because they're like I said, there's people who really would like to read this weird stuff.
Right. And to somebody who knows that, it's going to be like really a juicy little thing. Yeah. And somebody that doesn't would probably just read right over it.
Right. Exactly. It's not that big of a problem. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now the PR move, I was trying to show that she did whatever she wanted. And just because the company was telling her to do something, she wanted to protect her boys instead of doing that. So she was trying to give him something that he would want more than the story. But I really love the whole, well, here's the elixir. So now you're going to write whatever I want you to write. But anyway, when I first wrote this, my first draft, she was much more femme fatale, much more gumshoe about everything. And it just sort of faded as I wrote. So, but Jamie, I love your idea of a gumshoe series with her. So it's like sci-fi element. So anyway, I've got so many notes here.
I noticed that Gina picked up on the Horowitz bobblehead doll, and the name had a minor little ping in my head.
Oh,
I just kind of read over. I figured a celebrity person I didn't know about, and then I looked it up, and it's the Big Bang Theory guy.
Yes.
So see, again, another little nod to the dorky, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
Geeky faction of people who would just devour a series of a girl in a Marilyn Monroe dress who can slay and who can pass as a man and who travels around in all these dimensions. Like, That could be so much fun, and people would really like to read that. I think there's an audience for it.
Okay. Well, you know how excited I was about doing my gumshoe last year, and
Yeah.
I never got finished with that. Well, I think I know why, because I want it to be more like this. So I'm excited when I get these other projects off my table. I do want to come back to this and,
Why? Because it's fun, right?
yeah, because it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Shouldn't what you write be fun?
Yes. Mhm.
Trying
If
to
you don't
embrace
enjoy reading it, no one else is going to enjoy reading it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I've got so many notes. I could talk to you guys about this for a long time, but I don't want to make this go on forever. So just tell me. All right. So Dee Dee Bowman, I can't believe that I missed a space. That was totally dumb. But you really don't think that it would be a problem to have the two names on the front of a book?
I mean, people do it all the time. This is probably something we should do some research on. Let's look around Amazon before. I mean, I would think I know you don't like social media. And so, but you kind of have to have a social media presence as an author, especially as a self-published author. So you would have to have one for Dee Dee. So do you really want two? But will your mom put her name on a book? Like, I don't know if that was
the problem.
the problem. Yeah. So, I mean, the other flip side of this, again, this is something we probably should research, and I'll help you do it because I'm interested in this, is if you're going to do nonfiction and fiction, a lot of people have two different names so that Amazon, your also bots don't get confused.
That's a good point.
Though Amazon has changed their also bots too. I don't think they even exist anymore. It's more about people paying for sponsored, like,
they've pushed them way down the page.
Yeah. So maybe that's not even a problem. Like,
right.
So if you like Joanna Penn, she writes as JF Penn for her fiction, and her nonfiction is Joanna Penn. Everybody knows they're the same person, but she has it that way, but only one social media account because the names are so similar. But she does it that way so that her Amazon stuff doesn't get confused and people know which ones are,
I'm sorry, let me just break in real quick. For the non-Midwesterns, Jen is talking about also bought, B-O-U-G-H-T. No, because it really sounds like you're saying also bought, and so people might not know what you're talking about. So used to be if somebody bought your book, they would see on the page people who bought this book also bought X, Y, and Z book. And Jen is trying to say that they're messing with all of that stuff now and that it could be a little bit different. So I just want people to know what we're talking about.
Right, because you want to show up in other people's also bots. Michigander. And I used to be in radio. Oh my gosh, I had to train myself not to talk like a Michigander, and I'm totally 100% Michigander again. You wouldn't want to show up your fiction underneath someone's nonfiction because those people probably aren't looking for this kind of thing. So that's why people do that. But again, that might be a thing of the past anyway. So that's something, honestly, I think, Rhonda, this could possibly be a good podcast episode eventually if you and I do a bunch of research and figure this out. But I personally would love to see your name on the cover of everything. But again, there's a couple hurdles, like your nonfiction and your fiction and your mom putting her name on. So maybe you would do something like R.H. Hagerman and her just do her initials too, first name, and do Rhonda Hagerman for your Rhonda.
Or she could just be Dee Dee Bowman, and Rhonda could be Rhonda Hagerman.
Yeah, because I
do that too.
Rhonda needs to move forward and do what Rhonda's going to do and publish what Rhonda's going to publish. And then the stuff that you do together needs to have its own life. And because I have no idea what the timeline is like for all of the together stuff that you all are doing, but you are now on the Christian Indie Writers podcast, and maybe we'll have a Christmas compilation published, and you will have a name and a little bit of buying power or whatever to throw behind a project that is a collaboration with your mother, instead of starting all over at zero with the social media. Look, Rhonda Hagerman has collaborated with Susie Q over here on doing this project. So I just am very jealous of you being rewarded with the knowledge and accolades of the work that you do independently. Also, did you really submit this as something you co-wrote with your mother? Did you co-write this with your mother?
No, but she helped edit it, and she put some work into it. So I was trying to use it as a vehicle to get that name out there, but I'm starting to think that was not the best thing for me to do.
Because if you're going to do it, don't advertise it. It's two of you. Just do it as Dee Dee Bowman. But again, I think you should be R.H. Hagerman or whatever you're going to represent yourself as an author.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think that, but that has to be a decision that you and your mom make. But
Yeah.
And
All
I wanted to say too about the two of my favorite authors have written books together, and they put both their names.
Okay.
Ted Decker and Tosca Lee wrote a series together, and they have both of their names on the cover.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, I'm going to spend some time starting to research this. And if you guys want to do a podcast, then I'll do heavy research on it.
yeah, well, we'll see what you come up with and see
Mhm.
if you think it's podcast worthy, if there's enough
Mhm.
there, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
all right. And so, last but not least,
Oh yeah, so it's my turn, and when we're talking about stuff that's fun to write, basically, this is the direction that I go when I'm looking to write fun. So, I don't know. I just basically want to hear what you all have to say about it. Yeah. So I'll shut up now. Bye.
all right, who wants to go first?
I've only got a couple of comments, but I don't know if somebody else wants to go first or.
go ahead,
I'll
Rhonda.
Okay. So all right. So she just wanted thoughts and comments, and I didn't. Maybe my grammar. Maybe I've got a bigger grammar issue because I didn't see a lot of problems that needed to be solved. But in the second paragraph, I wanted to know: did any of you think that this was a sci-fi or headed sort of that semi-sci-fi? Just with the light shining on the foreheads and the chirping of the machine. You know,
And
if
the
it's
hazmat suits.
Yeah, well, she
yeah.
called it speculative fiction, so I knew to
Okay.
look for that. I knew that was going to happen.
Okay, so it is a little bit outside of reality then.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, she accomplished that. And my only meat is that a lot of the sentences were short. There weren't, maybe not short, but on the shorter side and all the same length. Or at least it's starting to feel like that because everything seemed like it was so rushed. And I know in parts of it, it should seem rushed. But the second from I think this is the second from the last paragraph, where all I saw from the airship window was the sky. I wish that she would have made that seem a little bit more slow motion-y.
More description probably of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Stop there a bit.
And I think that would have added a lot to it for me as a reader. But I will say that I like the story. I'm expecting this isn't the end of the story, so I can't wait to read more of it. I thought it was great. I was fascinated by the Hindenburg when I was a kid. It was the first tragedy I ever really heard of, and that never left my mind. So anyway, I give her an A for today.
All right, Tina, you go next.
Okay. The only possible typo or grammar issue that I found was he said, I did not believe in the crisp linen apron girls. And I wonder if she meant aproned girls or if she really meant to say it that way. Like a little kid might call them, like you call someone high water pants. So I wasn't sure what her intention was right there. So then all the rest of my comments have to do with the story itself. I loved the story. I love the whole premise. I was really disappointed when it ended because I want to know what's going to happen. So they came in with these white suits on and masks, and he ran from them. And then they did the thing where the thing made the chirping sound. And then she said, a white clothes man carried me off the train. And so I'm just wondering, did he just go willingly? Or was he struggling? Did he try to run away again? Was he beating on the guy's back? It just seemed like he went a little too docilely. Did the thing that made the chirping sound do something to him to make him docile?
Let me stop you for a second, Tina. It's a she, not a he.
Oh, thank goodness, because I thought it was a she.
Oh,
But that's also a piece of meat, because I acknowledge that we don't find out for sure that it's a she. I thought that she was keeping that a secret on purpose, but we don't find out that it's a she until a little bit later. I think that should be introduced sooner. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see anywhere where it said whether it was a he or she. So sometimes, because I know how to speed read, I think sometimes I read over stuff. I try to stop myself to read slower, but so I love the dirigible thing. That was great. I love that you didn't call it a dirigible; you just said gigantic bomb-shaped balloon. I thought that was awesome.
What did you call it?
A dirigible.
I've never heard that word. I just learned
Oh.
something today.
I think that's what they're called. Maybe not.
Probably.
So another thing that just made me question whether that thing that beeped, the light that beeped, did something to his thinking process, her thinking process, was that he didn't trust the candy, but then he gladly took the fizzy drink that knocked him out. Like there was some switch in mentality right there. And I know like it was something about their eyes smiling that made him trust him, but I just wondered if there was a little bit more to that.
Yeah. I think when she pushed the curls away from her eyes, I just kind of pictured Shirley Temple, so I thought she was a girl from early. It was just me as a reader.
Oh, see, I missed that. Girls. So yeah, and then I just have so many questions, like, that's good. Like, I have a lot of questions and I want to know answers to, but I think that's where she wants me as a reader. She wants me in that place where I have to know the answers. So.
All right. So as far as, are you done, Tina? Sorry.
Yeah.
As far as like grammar, it is very, very minimal. Like Coca-Cola is proper noun and should be hyphenated, so that Coke and cola should be capitalized and hyphenated. There's a missing comma. I mean, like very, very little as far as that's concerned. As far as the other thing, if she hadn't told me it was World War I may not have understood that. Like I got that it was the Hindenburg, so I caught onto that. But like since it's not like named that, if it's a younger reader or somebody who's not familiar with history as much, they may not have figured that out. She for sure got the speculative. So I think
it's World War II. I don't know if you.
What did I say?
One.
Oh, sorry.
I just didn't know if that's what you were.
No, I meant World War II. Sorry,
okay.
That's what I meant to say World War II. Sorry. But I think that it's a very difficult task if you're writing speculative about something in history. Like it would be very hard to be able to melt the two. I don't know that I could do it. So it might just been something I tripped on. The biggest problem that I had with it, because I love this piece, I just really can't wait to read the rest of this and see what happens. Like I want to know what are happening with it. Like at first when I'm reading it, I'm thinking that they are going to a concentration camp, right? But then now I'm wondering, all right, was everyone else going to concentration camp and these kids were being saved because they said it was a safe place, but can they be trusted? Like I'm all excited about this, right? But the biggest problem I had, and it was one of the things that she said that she wasn't sure if she was going to change many grammatical issues because of the voice. To me, that was not a voice of a child. There are no contractions in this. The word vaporize, I mean, depending on how old the child is this child a teenager or a young teenager, then they would use words like vaporize and some of the things that she had in here. But to me, like, the light did not hurt when it was shown on me. Like, I don't know any child that would say that wouldn't say didn't, and that would use the word shown. But maybe that's because of the world she's creating. Maybe kids don't have contractions. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't have enough of it. But
I
really,
think, if I can just jump in real quick, like since I read a lot of World War II history, like fiction, I knew right away that this was England, and this was when they put the kids on the trains and sent them out of London because London was going to be bombed by the Nazis, and they were sending them to live with people in the country, so they would be safe. So that's where her story starts. And so when you think about a child from London in that time of history, then perhaps they wouldn't use contractions.
I would disagree, but again, that's going to be her author choice, I guess. Yeah. But
I feel like the British English is a lot more more formal than
Yeah.
American English.
Isn't that how the Narnia kids ended up in the house with
Yes.
the wardrobe?
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that in before you went on.
All right. Well, I'll just agree to disagree because I think that, and even in England, children are going to have a much more relaxed, unless they, were, unless there's a reason why they're not using contractions and why they're using all the big words. Like maybe that is our clue, is that maybe this child is special because they are like extremely intelligent. Like we don't know. So again, we're only getting a piece of it. So that piece of meat might be completely like thrown to the wind because I don't have enough of the story. So. But that's really the only thing I had. Like when she was talking about the grammar stuff, that's the only thing that really caught me, or like maybe stumble, was the fact that like there were no contractions, and it just felt very because even with me, I write historical and I have to put contractions in, even if a lot of times they may not have, because it just doesn't read right. It reads too stiff. So you have to also think of the audience that you have that's reading it now. So, but that's it. I mean, I love this and I can't wait to see what else she has. So. All right. Anyone else? All right, James.
Well, thank you very much. Really, really good feedback. I did not know that about the Narnia kids. And these kids did get put on a train from somewhere. Thank you, Tina, for deciding it's London. Hooray. I just knew that they were like, World War II is coming. Let's save the children. And they stuck them on a train and sent them away.
Well, that's why, because London was prime target for being bombed.
Right. I knew that it had happened. I just hadn't really looked too much into it.
It wasn't just London though, too. I know that lots of early on, German families sent their kids to England, or to other places trying to protect their kids, So yeah, it was, but probably London or England was probably a lot because they did get bombed a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because this particular call, they're like, if it is not speculative, it will be rejected. We should not have to ask, in what way is this speculative? And also they're like, if this is not about World War II, it will get rejected. Well, I will tell you all that this is not the only talk about World War II that is in the piece, although the imagined piece, because it isn't finished. It does kind of factor in later in the story so that it is, but I like that from the beginning, at least a couple of you kind of were like, yeah, it's World War II, I guess. So I'm hoping that the editor specifically putting out a call for it would read that into it. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. But anyway, even if he doesn't like it, I like this and I'm having a lot of fun writing it. I hear what you're saying about the kid's voice, Jennifer. It'll have to be something that I revisit and think about, because frankly, I'm just kind of writing it like she's telling it to me and I'm writing it down. And so, I mean, not in a weird demonic way or anything, but this is just how she talks in my head. So I will just have to like go in and see if I need to do something to child it up a little bit or something. And it's so funny too, because with Rhonda saying about the short sentences, I was counting on that to make the voice sound a little more childish. I was trying not to make a lot of long, complicated sentences to kind of give more of a child's voice to the narration. So it's really good feedback and a lot to consider. Describing what the inside of the dirigible looks like. I don't know if I want to do that, but maybe I do. I don't know. But so more description could happen in there. I totally agree. I think I addressed everybody's concerns, but overall, I'm really glad that you read this. I so appreciate it. And again, it's fun to write. And I think I just really need to enjoy writing, or what is the point? So I'm glad that I can enjoy it and it still not be terrible.
Yeah. If you wanted to make sure that it's clear that it's World War II, you could just say to keep us safe from the Nazi bombs, instead of just saying to keep us safe.
Okay.
Well, here's my question.
That would clear it up. Sorry.
This is what I was going to ask. Like, who are the soldiers? Are they Nazi soldiers or are they Allied soldiers? And do you not want us to know? Like, if you know who the soldiers are, maybe some clue with their uniforms. But if you don't want us to know that,
so much, but I cannot tell you because then it will not be any fun for you to read.
See, there you go. So I figured that you didn't tell us enough about the soldiers on purpose. That's kind of what I figured. And that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of the critique we're giving you, it's because we don't have any more of it. Yeah. And these questions I have, I would keep reading to find out the answers. Does
Well,
that
that's
make
good.
sense?
Yeah, sure
You know,
does.
so
I appreciate that. And also, so I wanted to address crisp linen apron girls. Yes, that's how she sees them. Well, there's another crisp linen apron girl, and there's another shine leather boot soldier. And so I don't know why that's how she does, but then she really trusts the skinny tie man for reasons that I don't understand. Maybe it is because of whatever light they flashed on her forehead, but she has a better feeling about the dirigible people than she has about the trained people. And she just does, like, I mean, without really a reason. And thank goodness it's speculative, I guess.
right.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
not
get
sure. I don't know if that needs clarification or not. Maybe, what'll probably happen is I'll get kind of to the end and I'll decide I need to go plug back in a foreshadow or something. And then maybe it would give me a reason to go back in there and fix that.
and I didn't tell you those questions I had because I thought you needed to change anything. These are just like my questions as a reader
Gotcha.
that I'm looking like when I can that will keep me reading and looking for the answers for.
Gotcha.
And hey, here's a bit of feedback that may or may not help you. Like, since we don't know, but I'm guessing that you know who the soldiers are, the shiny boots thing did make me think that they were the Nazis. Because I always see the Allied wearing like, like theirs were like the khaki and the olive color, and their boots were like brown. But you always saw like the dress parades of the German soldiers, and it was very kind of. So that's just throwing that out there. That if that's not your intent, then maybe. But if that is your intent, then that's some good foreshadowing, because it makes me like, oh, don't trust them. But maybe she should. I don't know. Like, it's very juicy. I can't wait.
Awesome. I really appreciate that, you guys. Really very much. I'm so thankful to have you guys to read my stuff. And it was really nice too to have your guys' things to read. I mean, sitting down with lunch and I get to read something that Tina wrote. I get to go back
Mhm.
to Grant and Sarah's world and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you guys sending your stuff through for me to read also.
Yeah, as much work as it is to make sure we produce something that's edited and readable once a week, like, it is just so valuable, I feel, to my career that we're doing this, because I am so much farther along than I would be if we hadn't. So I appreciate you ladies too.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. I'm sorry it got so loud here. I have to stay muted.
I just thought you didn't care. My feelings were hurt, Rhonda.
Oh,
All
goodness.
right.
Okay, well that wraps up this Postcast episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast.
I like how you tapped your papers like you're a news person.
That's right.
Yeah,
I did that on
yeah.
And we hope you'll come back and tell your friends all about us. And,
Yeah,
give
share
us-
the link to that free episode, right? There's a free episode that
Yeah,
people
there
can share with
is.
their friends. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we
All
should
right.
tweet that. Tweet that out. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Lots of fun. Bye.
Bye.